That was like my dream record, Month of Sundays, and you know, I felt like I was going in and being able to like make my pet sounds, basically.
Kevin's definitely the guy who decides the musical direction. He writes all the songs. That was the agreement from the start going in. And you know, he decided by that point that he liked lush music and he wanted to do more soul music influenced stuff, or Dusty Springfield and Memphis soul influenced stuff.
We spent a lot of time practicing and arranging those songs. Carolyn and I did a lot of work, just her and I, making making those string and brass arrangements really strong.
Kevin just had sort of some melodies in his head, and he really just had to sing them to me and tell me where he wanted them to be, where he was hearing them in the music, and he'd be like, I want this to be really soft, or I want this to be a big swell here, and then I would ask some questions like, do you want a lot of harmonies, or how do you feel about just being like one solo instrument? We just talk about the sound, and so it actually was really pretty smooth.
I don't think of it as necessarily stylistically different. I think we were able to define the ideas that had been floating around a little better because we had the means to do it.
We had a much bigger budget, I mean, that's for sure, and we had a great producer, Tom Monahan from the Lilies and Bernice Brothers and whatever else he's doing now, and he was really good.
Tom called me and I was like, I'm looking to make, like Dusty and Memphis meets George Harrison's All Things Must Pass, and we just clicked on every level of that.
We were all really in sync with each other, and Tom Monahan was definitely in sync with our ideas too.
He was a good translator from everyone's, for everyone's, muddled ideas that were spouting out behind the vision that, was already in place.
He understood the sound that we were after and totally knew how to make it happen.
We rented out this great analog studio, Uber studio.
A nice big drum room, nice big, everything.
We pretty much had the wherewithal to do whatever we wanted, which was cool. I mean, it was exhausting, but it was also exciting.
We had basically an endless budget. There was no top to it.
And it was fantastic. It was great to work like that. It was the first time any of us had the luxury of making a record that way.
Let me live my own life. The best you can is the best you could find.
The recording of that was just one of the greatest times I ever had.
We knew when the record was being made that it was something really exceptional. But you never know if people are going to buy into it or not.
The record release show was sold out, and we had like a 14-piece string and brass section.
If I can make it through the summer, I know that everything will be alright. If I can make it through the summer, I know that everything will be alright.
It seemed like, we'd go out for a couple months, come back for a month, and go out again. So yeah, we toured the hell out of that thing.
And the crowd pull up its covers, 'cause they know that's the end of summer, autumn time.
When you're on tour, the first thing you do when you get in town is look in the local papers and see what they said. And I don't think I ever saw a bad review of that album. But we also knew enough about the industry to know that that was no guarantee that we were gonna, make it big.
What we might. Sun
critical acclaim was overwhelming, and I kept seeing them from all parts of the world, and the #1 record of 2001, and we took it with a grain of salt.
Overhead, do what you can. Your 3 long months are going so fast.
When things started amping up, it was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of everything,
A lot of being on the go.
We had fans and we had great venues and good shows and, really excellent response.
LA and San Francisco and New York and Chicago were always good, but then even people were showing up in Boise and stuff like that, which was pretty cool.
Kind of what everyone always had hoped it was going to be. We've all been playing in bands since, 14, 15 years old.
It was very exciting to sort of feel the love.
We were being asked by all these huge bands to either open shows at huge places or go on tour with them. Our headlining tours, we were just packing the clubs and small theaters.
There was a sort of sense in the air that we were on the verge of some kind of breakthrough. I don't know to what level, but there was that sense that we were gaining strength as we were going.
Definitely felt like we were on to something,
And then everything unraveled.
The road below won't take me under.
Near the end of the touring that record, Kevin had things going on that were, involved in some things maybe he shouldn't have been. Not that any of us were angels by any means.
During that entire record, I had a complete heroin addiction that had been building up for a couple of years before that. The death of my best friend and musical compadre, Epic Soundtracks, that happened at the end of '97. That hit me very, very hard. And I tried to seek professional help. I was doing therapy and they had me on antidepressants and things, and the stuff just wasn't working. I was just in way too much grief. My drug use just started to escalate. I was a secret drug user, even though I'm sure it was written all over my face,
There was probably, on my part anyway, some blind eye, kind of for the sake of keeping it going, which, may have been selfish on my part.
We knew what was going on for so long and just kept ignoring it and ignoring it and ignoring it.
It totally got in the way of us being able to communicate with him and really be friends with him. Our friendships really suffered with him.
I found myself unable to communicate with them anymore. Found myself kind of boxed in at in the back of the van, just sort of alone. And I kept trying to get clean, and there was not enough time for me to really do it in that period. And my addiction just kept and depression was getting deeper and deeper.
The long, slow disappointment was just realizing that this is just not going to work, and things weren't right with all of us.
Our tours started becoming extremely manic. Things like the van would pull up. We're starting a 6-week tour, and the van would pull up, and I'm just getting out of bed, we're ready to go, and I haven't even packed for a tour, and I'm just trying to figure out, just a skeleton of what I used to be. I went down to about 115 pounds.
That was the other thing that was so hard, because besides the fact that our band was falling apart, we were watching our friend fall apart. So it was saddening and maddening and heartbreaking.
We had done our last tour we did with the Posies and the Pernice Brothers, which was a lot of fun. Good tour, good shows. Kevin's health was not up to par to handle the tour.
Kevin got friends in every town that would, you know, feed him whatever that he wanted. And it just so happened that we got to San Francisco and there was nobody there to do that for him. And so he got sick before the show, and he ended up flying home from San Francisco, and I think we canceled a couple of shows, and it was the first time that we really had to cancel shows because of somebody's, you know, problem.
The frustration is what really took over in the end, because we just, you know, couldn't work with the guy.
We never tried an intervention, put it that way. I think we all just got mad.
When we got back to Chicago, there were some lies that were told.
Yeah, there was some money issues. Money that had not gotten to where it was supposed to get to.
And that's when Carolyn and I basically confronted Kevin after a show.
The infamous Abbey Pub last show, where the end of the show, everyone walked out.
It was a rough show. I mean, I think, you know, as far as the audience was concerned, I think it went okay, but it definitely wasn't a very good performance from our perspective. And just, you know, it was just difficult, and I was at my wit's end.
We just had to call him out on a big lie that he had told us, and we basically said, we gave him a chance to own up and tell the truth, and he just lied.
I remember like Jason and Carolyn like shouting at me about something, and me just like not really understanding.
She was just like, you can look for another keyboard player, and she walked off, and I just said to him, you know, you had so many chances.
No more songs, no more songs, no more songs for when it's gone. Shut it down and say so. No one's left at all. Nowhere left to call home.
I cut off communication from the world. I turned my answering machine off, turned the volume down. The mail came in, I didn't even look at it, just stacked up. My marriage, like 15 years, was coming to an end, and I was completely lost in a total fog and haze.